Namaskara Hellargu. Good morning to one and all. I am extremely grateful to the Mythic Society and the office bearers for having invited me to deliver the Professor G.S. Dikshit Endowment Lecture. Of course, the subject would be another gained person or gained archaeologist, Dr. S.R. Rao. Dr. S.R. Rao needs no introductions to the students of archaeology across the world. And he has been a colossus of the 19th century among the archaeologists. What I am going to speak about his achievements and life and achievements, but I will be not speaking on the Indus script and the marine archaeology. For these two subjects require specialists. I will be speaking only on the explorations, excavation, conservation of monuments, development of museums, with which I am familiar and I have been researching for the last few decades. So for the last 1 week, we have been hearing about the S.R. Rao's birth centenary celebrations. On the 1st January, there were several newspaper appearances about the achievements of Rao and his contribution to the Indian archaeology. In the Bangalore Circle of the Archaeological Survey of India, a special webinar was also arranged. And across the country, the celebrations are going on. And everyone is paying their respects to Dr. Rao, not for his personality, but for his contribution to which the Indian archaeology owes much. So let me begin about his birth centenary. And as I told you, he is So S.R. Rao is popularly known as S.R. Rao. He is an eminent archaeologist, best known for his outstanding contribution to the Harappan culture, Indus script, marine archaeology, preservation of monuments and developments of site museums. He was born in 1922 at a small village in Anandapuram. He was the youngest. So these details I will just skip. Now I will come to the emergence of the S.R. Rao and his appearance on the Indian archaeological scenario. One must understand the contemporary scenario when S.R. Rao stepped into the archaeology. That was precisely around 1947. So the Indian archaeology was headed by Dr. Wheeler, who was the DG in 1944. He transformed the archaeological methods, teaching and reporting facilities. The fourth decade of the 20th century witnessed the most remarkable events and sweeping changes in the Indian archaeology. Dr. R.M. Wheeler, who was in the war service, was recalled and he was appointed as the DG in 1944. And he transformed the method of reporting, finding, excavation, etc. So there was an impact on the Indian archaeology. And more than this, the political compulsions of the 1947 made the greater India into two countries, Pakistan and India. And unfortunately, its impact was so that we lost many sites associated with the earliest cultures, including the famous Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, and Paleolithic sites of the Sohan Valley, as well as the Gandhara art centers like Taxila, Charsada, whose influence has reached down south as far as Amaravati in Andhra Pradesh. So an intensive search was on for similar Indus sites in India. Here I would like to recall that there were only two sites of the known Harappan sites in India in 1947. One was Kotlani Hankan in Punjab and other were the Rangpur in Gujarat. So here the Rao emerged on the Gujarat side, and the then DG Dr. Amalanand Ghosh, he surveyed the Punjab, Haryana and other areas, Rajasthan, and he discovered more than 14 sites which had the Harappan, pre-Harappan and the late Harappan affinities. So the task of finding the Harappan, since the Gujarat, the adjoining the western countries of the Indian borderlands, fell upon the S.R. Rao. That at this juncture, as I said, Rao appeared on the Indian archaeological scene. He carried out many relentless archaeological missions for well over 6 decades, opening new vistas in the cultural annals of India. This is precisely where Dr. S.R. Rao emerged on the Indian archaeological scene, where we were in search of the Harappan sites. So let me first quickly go through the explorations Dr. S.R. Rao has done. He explored between 1954 to 1980 in Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka. And between 80s to 97, he explored the offshore and onshores of the Indian coastline and discovered many ancient habitation settlements that have sunk because of the water level has risen. So in Gujarat, he intensively explored the whole area, especially of the Kathiawar Peninsula, and he discovered the early and late and other Harappan sites. Like in 1954-58, he explored the areas between peninsular Kathiawar and Kutch and part of the mainland from Mehsana in the north to Surat in the south. In this survey, he discovered more than 50 sites that included important Harappa sites like Bhagatav, Harappa sites like Lothal, Kota, late Harappan site like Meg, etc. In 1960-61, he discovered 10 rock-painted shelters in Madhya Pradesh, that is in district Rewa. And his most outstanding contribution so far as the exploration is concerned, it is in the Kolar and adjoining Kurnool in Andhra Pradesh. And he discovered the Payampalli, which is considered even today as an index site for so far as the Neolithic sites are concerned. And in Karnataka, he discovered important site of Banahalli, Kendatti, Doddatti and other sites in the Kolar region. And of course, the Banahalli has been excavated on a large scale during 3-4 seasons under the directions of Dr. L.K. Srinivasan and Dr. B. Narasimhaya. And that has given a wonderful picture of the Neolithic and Chalcolithic cultures. And the important finding was a potter's skill. And he also explored the west coast from Gokarna to the Udupi, and he discovered many early historical sites. So this is about the brief his exploration. Now we'll move on to the excavations of Rao. Rao has practically excavated right from Kashmir to the Kanyakumari in the different areas. So if you look at the geographical map of the India, he has excavated in Gujarat, Rajasthan, Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. So this is the sites which I have listed: Amreli, Bhagatav, Dwarka, Lothal, Megam, Rangpur in Gujarat, Chittorgarh in Rajasthan, Elephanta, Daimabad, Kaneri, Raigad, Sastewadi, Teur in Maharashtra, Goa, Chandur, Karnataka, Hampi, Hunur, Keladi and Pattadkal, Aihole also. In Andhra Pradesh, he has excavated Singanapalli. In Tamil Nadu, he has excavated Payampalli. So this is the geographical extent of Rao. Chronology of Rao's also one should understand right from 1952-53 till 1979-80. He has excavated about 22 sites from the Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra and Goa. This is what the chronology of the Rao speaks. Typology of Rao's excavation also deserves to be known. That Harappa culture, he has excavated about 5 sites: Rangpur, Lothal, Bhargato, Mehgam, Daimabad. And then about Neolithic, Chalcolithic and Megalithic cultures, he has excavated Payampalli, Singanapalli, Hunnur, Teur, Sastewadi. Ancient mining and metallurgy, Keladi in Karnataka. Ancient port towns, Kaveri Pattanam in Tamil Nadu, Dwarka in Gujarat, Rajbandar, that is Elephanta Islands in Maharashtra. Early historical sites also did not escape the attention of Rao, and he excavated Amreli, Kaneri, Aihole, Pattadkal, Chandur. And medieval archaeology, so far as concerned, he excavated in Chittorgarh, Hampi, and Raigad. What I am going to show the next is just a brief chronology of the east sites because of the time constraints. The first, we will begin with Harappa culture. Rangpur, he excavated in 53, 54, 55. It is in district Surendranagar. It has given a threefold cultural sequence. The one is Mesolithic, and the second phase is divided into early Harappa, that is 2A, and the late Harappa. And then second C is divided, is called the transition phase of the Harappa, and the third is the Leicestershire deposits. This is the chronology, and this excavation gave a firm datum line for the Harappa, degeneration of Harappa, transition from Harappa. This can be considered of that 1950s an index site so far as the Harappan cultures are concerned, and this is the great contribution of S.R. Rao. And these are some of the excavated pictures of the Rangapur. These are various structures that you are going to see. And this is brick structures and burnt big drains in phase 1 to 6. And of course, the name which brought the name and fame to the Dr. S.R. Rao is the Lothal site. And he is known for the famous discovery of the dockyard. A Lothal, a Harappan port town in district Ahmedabad, Gujarat. He excavated it in a large scale between 1954 to 62-63. And it has been divided into the two cultural phases. One is A, that is mature Harappa culture, and the degenerate Harappa culture, what we call nowadays as the late Harappa culture. And the important findings were a fortified acropolis, the town divided into citadel and the residential area, that is upper town and the lower town. The most important findings were a well-designed dock, a warehouse, houses in row with sanitation, several indus seals, rites, and bajra. These are the findings. Of course, I am going to show you the pictures. This is the panoramic view of the excavations of the Lothal. And this is the famous dockyard. And these are the warehouse and the structures. And this row of houses, interconnecting roads and drainage system. And these are the indus seals, which he encountered in large numbers. Then the next Harappan site he excavated was Bhagatau. It is at the mouth of river Kim in the district Broj, Gujarat. It is the southernmost coastal settlement of the Harappa culture. And a small-scale excavation was conducted in 1957-58, and it has been divided into two phases. And the first phase is also again divided into two sub-phases. That is, 1A is mature Harappa, and 1B is late Harappa, 2 is medieval. These are the various kinds of the antiquities and the ceramics found, and these are the terracotta objects, and these are the cherts and blades. Cherts and blades are the most characteristic features of the Chalcolithic cultures. Then another Harappa site excavated was Mehgam. It is on the Narmada estuary in district Braj, an extensive late Harappan settlement. A small burial pit was found, two high-necked jars, a dish and stand with a flat dish. A burial appendage included a jar with a raised neck painted, and Mehgam must have been a port in the late Harappan time, contemporary with Rangapur. This is his observation, and these are the dish and stand, very popular in the Harappan ceramic industry, and these are the various kinds of the pottery. Daimabad is in Maharashtra. It is known for the solid bronze casts of the bullock cart being and carried by a chart. So this is where he excavated along with the M.N. Deshpande, who was then the Director General of ASI. And it has been divided into Neolithic with two sub-periods, 1A and 1B. The second is Malwa. Malwa is known for the fabric, that is a typical cream-colored pottery with the paintings. Since it was found from the Malwa area, it has been known as popular as Malwa. the Jorwe culture, which is the beautiful paintings of the cream kin pottery. And since it was found from Jorwe, it is known as the Jorwe ware. And these are the cultural sequence of S.R. Rao. And these are the various antiquities and pottery and terracotta figurines from Daimaba, that is spouted vessel. And this is what I was speaking about, the 4 solid bronze images of the bull and cart were found, and they were tied with a pole to a chariot. And these are the various kinds of ceramic industry. Then we will turn our attention to the Neolithic, Chalcolithic and megalithic cultures what Rao has excavated. The first site he excavated was Payampalli. Payampalli is in district North Arcot, Tamil Nadu, excavated in 64, 65 and 67, 68. One is Neolithic culture. It has been divided into 1A and 1B. Period 2 is megalithic culture with overlap between 1 and 2. The importance of this Neolithic site is by S.R. Rao is the Neolithic level found at the Payampalli is a metal free. No metal was found in the Neolithic level. For several decades, this served as an index site so far as the Neolithic cultures of the southern India are concerned, and it has also given one of the earliest C14 datings. Interestingly, no metal was found in the Neolithic levels. In the megalithic period, a variety of implements like sickles, spears, chisels, nails and axes were found. And the C14 dates obtained here for the Neolithic samples, that is 1390 to 200 BC for the Neolithic levels. And then 315 plus or minus 100 BC for megalithic levels. Of course, later on, Hallur provided the earliest Iron Age date as 1000 BC, excavated by Dr. Nagaraj Rao. This is the chronology of the Payampalli, and these are the terracotta figurines. Next, Singanapalli. To understand the generic and sequential relationship of the painted pottery tradition with the Neolithic cultures of the Godavari Narmada Valley on the one side, and on the Neolithic non-metal cultures in the Palar Basin and the other, necessitated the investigation. So he excavated the Singanapalli, and he could find a prosperous agricultural community living in a large village. The village folk not only adopted the painted pottery tradition of the post-Harappa Chalcolithic cultures, but also preferred the indigenous handmade tradition rather than wheel-made, continuing their old Neolithic pottery types, including the bowls with channels and pinch lips. They evolved new ceramic forms such as bowls with channel spouts and flat base. So these are the various kinds of the pottery. Hannur, it is in Karnataka. It is the megalithic site, one of the largest where Capstone was opened. 6 pot burials and platforms outside the circles. No iron objects, but a copper bell with a rectangular base was found. Limited black and redware balls were found. Tehor, it is in the Maharashtra. It is also a megalithic site. A circle was opened. It has 3 phases. Phase 1 shows houses with floors in base, mud walls, solitary double pit burial. Phase 2 shows houses with floors in well-rammed muram. Phase 3 shows houses with rubble footing and floors in black clay. And these are some of the pictures. Sastaivadi is also in Maharashtra. On the other bank of Mula, a small-scale excavation was conducted in 71-72. Period 1 is Neolithic, represented by handmade burnished greyware in large quantity, along with a few painted pottery of Malwa fabric. Fragment of a polished stone axe, a quern. Circular houses were noticed. Period 2, we have painted pottery of Jorwe fabric, parallel-sided blades of chalcedony, rammed mud floors with post holes and copper fissure. Period 2, Muslim Maratha periods. These are some of the Hunur plate Sastaivadi. And we will move on to early historical period. The first site he excavated was Amreli. The ancient site locally known as Golewa Timbo is situated 2 kilometers west of Amreli, a district headquarters in Gujarat. A small-scale excavation was conducted in 52-53, and the site was continuously occupied from the 1st century BC to the 8th century AD. And the interesting findings were the post-cremation burials of the 1st century BC. This was the highlight of the excavation. And of course, we could get the Western Kshatrapa coins of lead and silver. And a report has been published known as Amreli Kshatrapa Gupta town. Then these are some of the seals and ceilings structures of the Amreli. Then he excavated Kaneri caves. Cave number 25, Kaneri, it is in Mumbai suburb. A small-scale excavation was conducted in 69-70. 3 occupational levels belonging to a single cultural period, ranging in time from 1st century to the 9th century AD, were noticed. 3 furnaces, crucible, slags were found. And the monks living in the caves were also, what is his observation? What he said, the monks living in the caves were also engaged in crafting the metal objects and trading in addition to the religious preaching and practices. This was the highlight. He said, though no, the Buddhist monks were there, they were also, in addition to their religious responsibility, they were also engaged in the trade. The other interesting findings were red polished ware, 24 terracotta clay ceilings, a coin of Nahapan and inscribed potsherds. The investigations also indicated that the retaining wall was built to convert the veranda to meet their smelting and casting activities. So these are the Kaneri Caves excavation pictures. These are the inscribed potsherd and ceilings. And then Aivale. Of course, no one needs introduction about the Rao's work in Aivale. And he has about the excavations of the Rao. In the Mythic Society has conducted a seminar in 1977 on the Chalukyas of Badami. And he says about the Aivale and Pattadakalu, I would like to quote the same. The excavations, I quote, the excavations conducted by the Archaeological Survey at the 3 great centers of the early Chalukya art have brought to light very valuable information regarding the pre-Chalukyan temples in these 3 places. For the first time, brick temples of the Shatavanas and later periods have been found. Below the Chalukyan stone temples such as the Amber Gudi at Aivade and the Sangameshwara temple at Pattadakal, the latter having a large pillared hall. The more important brick edifice of the Chalukyan times is, however, a large assembly hall and its adjacent laid bare in the course of excavation near the Jaina temple at Pattadakal. Being undoubtedly secular in character, it might have been used for some royal ceremony as coronation, for which the Pattadakal was specially chosen by the Chalukyan kings, although Badami was their capital. These are his words in the seminar. So, in Aivade, in 69-70, there is some logic behind what I understood from the conversations with Rao. During the same time in the 1970, there was a 400th year of Bomb Jesus' relics exposition in Goa. So the entire Goan monuments, churches and convents was rebrushed. A new look was given. At that time, Rao was the helm of the Aurangabad circle. Immediately after this, perhaps this might have acted as a stimulus for him or might have inspired him to take immediately the conservation of monuments at Aivade, Badami, Pattadakal. So we owe what we today see, the Badami, Aivade, Pattadakal complex, it is but for Rao. He had an idea of entirely transporting the Aivade and other villages to the modern and make it as a museum of temple. That I will speak in the later time when I come to the conservation. So as I said, underneath the foundation of the Ambigar Gudi, the remains of a neatly brick temple, rectangular in plan, was exposed, and the typical knife-edged bowls of the Shatavana period were found. In Huchappaya Mata complex, a hoard of Chalukyan jewelry in the Chalukyan levels. Further below, Shatvahana deposit with redware bowls besides other ceramic types and circular lead coin was encountered. The kachi consisted of a gold pendant with a figure of peacock beautifully embossed on the both sides, silver bangles and a gold ring. Ladkan temple also we have the lower levels, some early structures. Below the foundation of the Ladkan temple, the remains of black brick structure, red polished ware were found. And the Ladkan temple was hit by the floods. At least 3 flood deposits were noticed by Rao during his clearance. The first flood is represented by a half a meter thick blood accumulating over the basement of a stone temple, and the second one by a meter thick deposit of fine sand and silt, sealing a high plinth of a temple almost contemporary with the Gaudara Gudi. So these are some of the excavated remains from the Aivale, these 2 temple complexes. Then another same, the Pattadakal. Below the Sangameshwara temple complex, a well-planned large rectangular pill of bricks that was once raised in front of the Sangameshwara temple was found. And a 14-meter east-west and 12.64 north-south, and the size of the bricks, this was confirms to the similar bricks in Adharva Shatvana sites found elsewhere. This is how he has identified it as a Shatvana site. The hall is divided into 3 bays. 5 pillar bases are noticed. The ceramics retrieved were bowls, lamps and jars, akin in form and composition to similar Shatvana sites. These are some of the excavated sites of the Shatvana period, in Pattadakal complex. Chandur is the in Goa. It is the capital of the early Kadamba. A small scale excavation was done to trace the early history of Goa. The remains of 3rd, 4th century temple and the late Shatvana settlement was found. Later on, Varaprasad Rao and some in collaboration with a foreign university, they excavated on a large scale, and the report is available. Then we will focus on the medieval archaeology. Fort at Chittorgarh. Mahasati enclosure, Fort Chittorgarh, Rajasthan. A small scale excavation in 58-59. Rajput ladies have committed sati in the Mahasati enclosure, that was the saying there. In order to ascertain the truth of this tradition, an excavation was undertaken in the Mahasati area. 4 small shrines, ashes and charred bones. 5 structural phases were noticed, and the phase 1 is roughly dated 11th century AD. An interesting structure found was a paved platform over which stood a sati stone. In addition, another 2 more sati stones were also found. These are the excavated remains. Of course, the Hampi. Rao had the distinction of inaugurating the Hampi National Project in 1975. If you remember the scenario then, 3 national projects were sanctioned by then Nurul Hasan, the education minister. One was Fatehpur Sikri in Uttar Pradesh near Agra. Second was Champaner in Gujarat. Fatehpur Sikri was given to Aligarh Muslim University under Dr. R.C. Gaur, and the Champaner was given under Professor R.N. Mehta of the Maharaja MS University of Baroda. And the third one was Hampi. The purpose of this medieval archaeology was to know the economic prosperity and the layout of the town and the socio-economic perspective of the cities. On these grounds, the 3 medieval projects was done, and Hampi was inaugurated by S.R. Rao. It was declared as a national project. Large-scale excavations were conducted in 75, 76, 77, because in 77 he got the Nehru Fellowship to undertake the research. So afterwards the V.N. Mishra came, and then Srinivasan, Narsimhaya, Jitendra Das, Poonacha. So Hampi is one of the sites where the excavations are going unabated continuously since 1975 to even to this day. So 3 national projects. S.R. Rao had the distinction of inaugurating the Hampi National Project. He excavated mainly in the citadel area around Mahanavami Dibba. and the King's Audience Hall, and he also conducted excavations at the Vithala temple complex. The results are too well known. Homakunda, a Brahmi inscription, Danasa Putasa was found, and he has identified as a Yagna Kunda, and all this. Interesting findings were the sanitary system of those days in the King's Audience Hall, and the well-lit the water system that fed to the citadel area. The channels one above the other, and the separate channels and network of drains for the sanitary system. So these are some of the pictures that Rao has excavated during 2 seasons. This is all Mahanami Dibba area. This is large number of water tanks. This is, he identified it as a Homakunda because there were so many charred bones and charred other things were found, ash, others. Raigad in Maharashtra he also excavated. The Queen's apartment and office complex of the ministers was traced. Then ancient mining and metallurgy also did not escape the attention of Rao. In Karnataka, he excavated a site known as Kiladi in Hassan district, along with Dr. Punacha. Ancient mining center Kiladi in district Hassan, it was excavated in 76-77, when he was the superintending archaeologist of the Bangalore Circle, to ascertain whether the tells, heaps of ancient mining were formed anciently or represent slabs of heap or ruined furnaces. So a tell with 4 tubes in situ and a row at the base was opened. And these are the details: strata 1 humus, burnt black earth; strata 2 large quantities of slags; strata 3 on the basis of stone circle, a red pot burial found by miners, thick and brown wares analogous to the similar megaliths elsewhere found and in the region suggested that the megalithic builders had occupied the region and mined between 5th and 3rd century BCE. This was his observation. These are the various photographs of the Kiladi excavation. Then ancient port towns, Kaveri Pattinam in district Tanjavur in Tamil Nadu. He excavated in 62, 63, 64, 65. Graphic description of this Kaveri Pattinam known as Pumpuharu, Kaveri Pattinaputtinam, like that. Literature, Siladipakam, Pattinapala and Greek Periplus. It gives a, because it was a Yavanas, that is Greek trading center. Yavanas were living too much, the Greek traders. So planned layout, it was famed for its planned layout, its mansions, Yavana merchant, that is Greek merchants, and artisans and famed trade and commerce. That was the greatness of the Kaveri Pattinam. And he excavated it, Kilialur. He excavated different places in the Kaveri Pattinam. It is on the shore of the Coromandala. Kilialur is the place where massive brick platform, and in one of the corners, the wooden post planted near this platform for anchoring the ships, indicated raft in the backwaters for anchoring the boats to these wooden posts. Veliyapuri Irupu, for fragmentary brick walls and 2 platforms at different levels, 4-phased structural activities were noticed. In Vanagari, a water tank, circular and plan, fed by brick built inlet channel from Kaveri was traced. On the megalithic black and red ware, allotted ware found in layers contemporary with the structure. The reservoir is dated to 1st, 2nd century AD. Palaneshwaram, a Buddhist vihara of the 5 square rooms and a common veranda. This is the only Buddhist vihara found in Tamil Nadu. A bronze Buddha in Dhyana Mudra, a large limestone slab bearing Buddhapada, and sacred symbols like Purna Ghata and Swastika were also found as antiquity. These are the various kinds of the coins, terracotta figurines, structures, raft, and this is where the structures. And these are the Vihara complex. Dwarka, of course, I need not go into the details. As I said, marine archaeology requires a specialized investigation. However, he said that 15th century BCE to 13th century it was there in activity. Storm waves destroying the protohistoric and early historic settlements at Dwarka. This is his conclusion. Rajbandar is the Elephant Island. Roman amphorae and red polished ware copper coins were found in his excavation. Now I will come to the conservation of monuments. Conservation of monuments, of course, Rao most favorite and most challenging task he took wherever he went, either in Goa or in Maharashtra or in Aurangabad or in Delhi, in Agra when he was in charge of that places, or even in Karnataka. Most fascinating and most taskmaster for the staff so as to take the undertaking. He used to tell, I want the work. However you do, I do not know. I want the work to be completed. These were his words. So Rao was a top-ranking conservator, adept in both understanding the problems and challenges of conservation and overcoming them. He used to understand what is the root cause of this problem, whether it is sinking or whether it is a leaking or have gone out of the plumb. He used to go to the real cause of the monument, study them, and then he used to suggest the conservation measures, how it is to be done. And he used to give an elaborate inspection note on the monuments. He used to start with the description and then give what is the problem, why it has happened, and how it is to be overcome. And this enabled him to undertake extensive structural conservation and restoration of several monuments in Gujarat, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Karnataka, Goa and Tamil Nadu. The best examples of his conservation are seen in the stone temple complex in Aivale, Badami, Patil, which I need not tell more. This is Kashi Vishveshwara temple. This is Sangameshwara temple. This is Aivale Kunti temple. Aivale Kunti and Durga temples. Aivale Ladkhan temple. Of course, as I said in the 1974 when the Mythic Society had the seminar on Chalukyas of Badami, Dr. S.R. Rao delivered a presidential address about the conservation of his monuments. He has made his observation as a presidential remarks. I quote it, "It has been my unique privilege to undertake repairs to the more than 100 temples of Aivale, Pattadakal and Badami, built by the early Chalukyas, so also by their successors at Ellora in Maharashtra, and later being rock-cut temples. But very few may know the horrible conditions of the early Chalukya temples in 6 years ago. They were encroached upon by ugly-looking modern hutments, and some of them were even converted into cattle sheds and private kitchens. Many of the beautifully carved edifices were not even approachable. Mounds of rubbish caused nausea to the visitors. The Archaeological Survey of India has since 1968 taken various vigorous steps to remove modern accretions and throw open to view the famous temples of Virupaksha, Sangameshwara, Mallikarjuna, Kashi Vishwanatha, etc. The extensive structural repairs at these 30 other temples have been carried out at a cost of 30 lakhs, besides the expenditure involved on laying out gardens and building sculptural galleries. These are his presidential remarks in the Mythic Society, his concern, his care, and his plan for the conservation of the monuments at Badami, Aivale, Pattadakal. And museums also did not escape the attention of the archaeologists. So far as the museums are concerned in Karnataka, one must remember two persons. One is Dr. S.R. Rao and another is Dr. M.S. Nagaraj Rao. Since the Dr. S.R. Rao was in the Archaeological Survey of India, he created the archaeological site museums. Whenever any conservation work is to be done, there in the debris, lot of the dismembered architectural members or sculptures used to be gathered. Immediately, he used to have a hall and name it as a sculptural shed. All the invaluable antiquities he used to store and display for the public. This is his greatest contribution. So what we can say is, S.R. Rao made outstanding contribution to the development of archaeological museums. He initiated a new type of raising sculpture shed galleries within the ambience of the monuments to showcase the invaluable antiquities, sculptures, architectural fragment, inscription, etc., collected while conserving and preserving them like Badami, Aihole, Patadakal, Lakkundi, Bagali, Banavasi and Baldigave. In all these places he created, even you go today, Baldigave, we have a sculpture shed. You go to Banavasi, we have. In Lakkundi, we have. Among these, a few like Badami and Aihole now have become full-fledged archaeological site museums. This is his greatest contribution. Wherever he went there, whenever any sculptures are found within the ambience of the monument, he used to raise a small hall and name it as a sculpture shed. So if this is the contribution of Dr. S.R. Rao so far as the museums are concerned of the ASI, and equally was Nagaraj Rao. During his period under the project District Museums, he created so many museums during his in Bidar, Raichur, Basava Kalyana, like other Hadagli and all that. So this is what the greatest contribution of S.R. Rao so far as the growth and development of museums in Karnataka is concerned. In the script, I know I am not going to tell. Anyhow, S.R. Rao made significant contribution to the study of the Indus civilization and the decipherment of the script. He argued that the Indus language was Indo-Aryan and the script started as pictorial writing and evolved into phonetic or alphabetic around 1700 BCE. This is his argument, which is still under a topic which is regularly debated among the scholars across the world. Marine archaeology, fortune favors the dare what it says. Immediately after retirement, Rao got an opportunity to go to the NIO, National Institute of Oceanography. Turned his attention towards scientific investigation in the marine archaeology because he has explored the entire west coast from Gokarna to Udupi and that area, and he has explored the east coast around Chennai, Kaveripatti. He has also excavated. So perhaps that might have made him to think about the marine archaeology in Indian context. So he went to the National Institute and Science Academy, Oceanography Donapala, and he served as an emeritus scientist during 81 to 1995 and thereafter as advisor in 96-97. During his tenure, he and his team undertook as many as 12 marine archaeological expeditions in and around Dwarka, Bet Dwarka, Kaveri Pattinam and Lakshadweep. And these results are well known. Distinctions and honors. Such a great legendary S.R. Rao. The distinctions and honors followed him. He did not go anywhere. Rao was honored with many academic fellowships and distinctions for his meritorious contributions to Indian archaeology. He was awarded the prestigious Jawaharlal Nehru Fellowship for undertaking research on the Indus script in 1977. The University of Mysore conferred on him the Doctor of Literature for his monumental work, The Lothal and the Indus Civilization. Rao was honored with the Samaja Bhushana, Prachya Vidya Sharada, Mythic Society Gold Medal for the Scholar of the Year, Karnataka Rajyotsava Prashasti, FIE Foundation Award Ichal Karanji, World Ship Trust Award UK 1992, and Gupta Foundation Award 1994. S.R. Rao was honored during the 150 years of ASI celebrations in Bangalore. These are the honors and distinctions what Rao confirmed. The one 92, 91 and 94, they're all awards given for his contribution to the marine archaeology. Last. Now, before concluding, I would like to say, what is Rao's excavation or his archaeological, what is its relevance today? That's what I feel. The legacy of new trends in archaeological investigations set forth by Wheeler was undoubtedly continued by Rao. because the phasing, dating, layering, everything was new, introduced by the Robert Mortimer Wheeler. The exploration and excavations he carried out in search of Harappan culture in Gujarat had its impact in search of similar sites in other regions of the India. The Harappan lamp he lit at Lothal in Gujarat, beaconed in Rajasthan, Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh and Maharashtra, and finally flamed at Dholavira again in Gujarat. You know, the Dholavira is one of the biggest Harappan sites in Indian context. Earlier it was considered as the Kalibanga. Now Dholavira is the biggest. The discovery of dockyard at Lothal and subsequent excavations at ancient port towns ultimately culminated in establishing the marine archaeological investigation in Indian waters as one more discipline in archaeology in India, which he carried forward at NIO Goa from 1981 to 1907. Rewarding results of the excavations of many Harappan sites and a large number of seals encountered in excavations acted as a stimulus to him to look seriously at the scripts on them. Perhaps, researching for well over 4 decades, Rao argued that the Indus language was Indo-Aryan, not Indo-European of the Central Asia, and the script started as pictorial writing and evolved into alphabetic phonetic by about 1700 BC. The painted pottery tradition occurring in Neolithic, Chalcolithic sites in Krishna, Kaveri, Tungabhadra Valley in down south was convincingly explained at Singanapalli. Curiously enough, the village folk not only adopted the painted pottery tradition of the post-Harappa Chalcolithic of the western India, but also preferred the indigenous handmade tradition rather than the wheel-made technique in manufacturing their ceramics. The C14 dates from Payampalli gave a firm datum line for the southernmost non-metal using Neolithic phase. And at Thevur, Rao showed that the stone circles were not funerary monuments of the iron using megalithic community, but the circular dwelling units of the Chalcolithic people. And Sastewadi proved to be a meeting point where the northwest movement of the Neolithic faith, the Krishna Valley, and southward marching Deccan Chalcolithic people and subsequent cultural contacts. From Kanheri caves, it was shown that the monks living in the caves were also engaged in crafting the metal objects and trade in addition to the religious preachings and practices. Mahasati enclosure at Fort Chittodgarh cautioned that the traditions cannot be ignored in reconstructing the history. The excavations at Aivale and Pattadakal gave new dimension to the Shatavana history in Karnataka and indicated that much before the Chalukyas could create cradles of Indian temple architecture at these celebrated art centers, including Badami and Mahakuta, had witnessed the temple building activities and perhaps were models for them. National project at Hampi Metropolis Vijayanagara opened a new vista in the medieval archaeology in Karnataka, where the excavations are still going on even now in one way or the other since he inaugurated in 1975, and perhaps, I repeat, perhaps is the longest excavation in the world. Finally, I would conclude my reminiscences with Dr. a few words before the audience. I met Dr. S.R. Rao in 1974 for the first time when I was a student of postgraduate studies. I was in 73, 75 for 2 years. In 1974, an epigraphical conference was held in which all the galaxy of the epigraphists has assembled here. This is a rare photograph of Dr. S.R. Rao. He is sitting second. Deshpande, I don't know the third person, then Guy. Dikshit is there at the last. Leela Shant Kumari, our teacher. And I can identify Dr. Ritti and Guraj Rao. Narsimurthy is there, Nagaraj Rao is there, Yes Nagaraj is there. This is where we served as a volunteers in this conference. I never knew what is the epigraphy nor the history. So this, my encounters with S.R. Rao. So my encounters with S.R. Rao started from this. So immediately after 75, by then the excavations had started in Hampi. I went in 1967, 66 or 77 to, as Dr. Sundara referred, you go and meet Dr. S.R. Rao. I met him in the Tipu Sultan Palace. He said, Mr. Patil, the excavations we are winding up. I got the National Fellowship, so it may not be possible for me to resume the excavation. We will try and see if the excavation continues, we will accommodate you. Fortunate favored me. I was appointed as a technical assistant in the Archaeological Survey of India. I was posted in the same Hampi to conduct the excavation to assist Dr. R.C. Agrawal, who was then directing the this thing. So since then, my association, my frequency with Dr. S.R. Rao continued till he breathed his last. So after 83, 84, I completed my school, and then my transfer, I went to Delhi. Meanwhile, Dr. Rao retired from the ASI and he settled at Goa. But he used to visit Delhi and he used to come to our office and he used to regularly come. And the very first question was, how are you and what you have written? What is your recent studies? And then he used to ask for a cup of coffee because Dr. Rao was very fond of coffee. So when I came back in 2002 to Bangalore, again, my association with Rao continued. And we used to invite him for the expert advisory committee for the export of non-antiquities. He used to come and guide us. And in 2005 or so, that was my perhaps last visit. In 2005, the conservation training camp for the Institute of Archaeology was held. And I went to his house. And all the family members were not willing. At that time, Rao was very old. And I assured him. And we personally took him to Rao to Hampi, inaugurated the conservation camp of the Institute of Archaeology, and he was an ardent devotee of Yantrodharaka in Hampi, Anjaneya. So we made a special arrangements for him and brought back to him. On the day when I visited his house, he gave me a book. This is the language of the script of the industry. He presented me. He signed those first 3 words by Nalini Rao. And Dr. S.R. Rao signed it. This is the pride possession of Dr. S.R. Rao with me. And thereafter, we could not visit him regularly. He also said that I will not come for any more for the meetings. So this is how my relevance, my acquaintance, my encounters with Dr. S.R. Rao. And finally, S.R. Rao left heavenly abode on 2013 at Bangalore. We salute with reverence S.R. Rao, an archaeological colossus of the 20th century. So these are a few words. Because of the time content, I could not explain in detail. I have just given you the bird's eye view of what Dr. S.R. Rao has done, what he has achieved. And I would request all the audience to give a standing ovation to this colossus, Dr. S.R. Rao. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you enjoyed this lecture. And I also thank for your patient hearing. I once again thank the Mythic Society for having invited me to deliver the Dikshit Endowment Lecture, Memorial Endowment Lecture, and the subject being the S.R. Rao. Finally, I don't know what relation I have with Dr. S.R. Rao. This is the 4th lecture I am giving on the S.R. Rao. ಯಾವ ಜನ್ಮದ ಸಂಬಂಧನೋ ಋಣ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. But anyhow, first I gave it in the Karnataka Itihas Academy, the same topic. And last year I gave it in the Kokle Institute. And again I have given S.R. Rao. And way back, still 5 years or 6 years back, there was a seminar on S.R. Rao in which I spoke on the excavations and explorations of Dr. S.R. Rao. So I think I might have some relation. What kind, I do not know. Anyhow, I may pay my tribute to him, what I have learned from him. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.